Hey, winter storm power outages could be kind of scary, especially when you think in terms of providing your own lights, heat, and electricity. We're going to share with you some of our backup power sources and how we have prepped for winter storms. Hi, I'm Hope.
And I'm Larry.
From Under the Median. Now, here in the Midwest, it is getting a wee bit chilly, guys. And that made us think about winter storms. And then we sort of went back in our memory to the fact that over the summer, we had a power outage in our neighborhood. It was a major power outage. Like there were long lines of utility poles that were down. So it wasn't just like a little, go and fix the wire thing. This was a long-term 3-day process where we were that power. Now we were fortunate because it wasn't super warm out. And so we survived actually really, really well for 3 days, but it was warm. And that whole experience made us consider really seriously what we had done to prep in case this happened in the middle of winter. So we took some very specific steps pretty recently to make sure that we were as prepped as we felt we could be.
Yeah.
In the event of a winter storm power outage, which is a whole different ballpark than summer. So we wanted to just really share with you guys some of the research that we've done. Now we're going to share with you some products that we really, really like. And then we're going to show you exactly what we have on hand and how we have a plan in place in order to keep warm and to have electricity in the event of a power outage event. During the course of the video, we're going to mention lots of products. There's going to be links, guys, in the description of the video. It will be under recommended products from this video. We'll make sure there's links there for you so you can click on them. And finally, I want to mention that Larry is uber good at this, guys. All of our married life, he has been a person that says we need to think about what ifs. I never forget once that the whole neighborhood was without power and we had lights on because Larry had some of these products we're going to show you today. And we had the windows open because it was a summer storm. And the neighbors walked by and they go, how come they have electricity and we don't? So he's actually super good at this whole prepping things.
And make sure you hang out with us to the end because I'm going to show you a very simple way to provide a small amount of electricity that'll help you get through a power outage.
And there's 3 different things you need. They're all readily available. So he's going to show you that. So make sure you stick with us till the end of the video. All right. Okay. On this video, we are specifically talking about providing heat and providing electricity. But y'all, this is part 1 of a 2-part series. Next week, next Monday, make sure that you are here because we're going to drop part 2 and we're going to talk about lights and how to deal with possibility of freezing pipes, things like that. So we're going to deal with a lot of the rest of it next week.
And I want to be specific about what we're going to cover here. Of course, we're not going to cover everything, but what we want to do is address an issue where you might be without power for 4 days during the winter. So we're not talking about a huge amount of time. We're not talking about like a hurricane that wipes out power for 2 or 3 weeks. We're just talking about, maybe a windstorm that blows some trees down and causes some electricity interruptions in your area whereby you can plan and have some of these comforts. So the first thing we're going to talk about is heating. And there are many ways that you can heat your house without power. And the first one, now this isn't something that we do, but it is recommended. We've done a little research on the topic, and that is a wood burning stove. And the nice thing about a wood burning stove is that you can supply the wood. Wood is easy and readily available to find. You can store it if you've got acreage. This is a wonderful way to supply heat to your home. Some wood burning stoves can actually heat most of your home and pretty much take the place of your furnace. The only thing is there's some maintenance involved and you have to clean them. You have to make sure the chimney is clear. And of course, there's some safety issues about running something like that in your home. Now, Hope and I don't have a wood burning stove. The next item on the list would be a propane heater.
And we've done extensive research on propane heaters. Now, we don't have a propane heater. We're going to tell you what our pick would be. We actually have a different power source available, a different heating source for our home. If we did not have that alternative in place, we would be out tomorrow buying one of these propane heaters that we're going to tell you about right now. What's so great about a propane heater, Larry?
Well, the nice thing about a propane heater is that they are safe to use indoors. A lot of different heating sources are not safe. This one is. In fact, there's a YouTube video that we watched where a fire department tested one of these heaters in an enclosed trailer, and they had absolutely no carbon monoxide readings, nothing dangerous, and it did not deplete the oxygen. Those are the two things that you have to watch out when you're heating with a flame. So the propane heater that I would recommend is called Mr. Heater.
Yeah.
And the big buddy would be the unit that I would recommend. There's different models of this, but that one is a 4,000 to 18,000 BTU heater that could really heat most of your home. It could heat a pretty large room. It's rated for a 425 square foot area. And you get bottles of propane, and the bottles will run that heater for 2 hours. So it's not a real long run, but it's enough to get you through a little short-term power outage. The other thing you can do is you can get one of the larger propane tanks, but then you have to buy some extra things with that.
Now, you mentioned there are different sizes. There's like the Big Buddy, and that's the one we recommend. That link will be in the description of this video. There's also a smaller unit that will heat about 250 square feet. The reason, it's not that we're not recommending that. If you have a smaller area, it is slightly less expensive. However, you know, when it comes to heating, I think it's better to be over-prepared rather than under-prepared. So, I mean, you would rather have to shut it down rather than overheat, rather than have something running at full blast and still be thinking, I am still cold. So I think for the little bit of extra money, then the Big Buddy is probably a better bang for your buck. Now, we're also going to leave, he mentioned the propane tanks. We are going to leave a link to those also in the description of the video. Now, the link we leave is for Amazon, but we have to be really, really honest with you guys. We did check the price at Walmart. It was substantially less at Walmart. The trouble with Walmart right now is they are having trouble keeping them in stock.
And you're talking about the 16-ounce propane cylinders.
Absolutely.
We're not talking about the heater. We're talking about the cylinders that it takes to keep it going. Now, the Big Buddy uses 2 cylinders. You can keep 2 plugged into that. And of course, if you run it on the lower setting, you're not going to be running through as much propane. So that is a real good method. Now, with any of these things that we're going to talk about, you want to read the owner's manual clearly, and you want to make sure you're operating that according to the owner's manual recommendations.
And make sure that your area is properly vented. That is huge whenever you're talking about something that is a heating element that is heating a large area of your home. It has to be vented properly.
Yeah,
but overall, these are very safe.
And one of the
used
things that you can do is you can open a window just a crack, a real small crack that'll let in a little fresh air to allow for that venting. But we really, with the heaters that we use, we've never really had a problem with that because we're heating such a large area.
Okay, now we mentioned we are absolutely highly recommending the propane heaters. However, we don't have them because we have another method to heat our home, and that is...
Well, we have kerosene heaters. We have 2 10,000 BTU heaters and 1 9,000 BTU. So we can actually heat our entire home with the 3 heaters. They're very simple to use. They're very safe. Once they get going, there's no fumes, and they're about 99.9% efficient in burning. So the way they're designed is that they burn off all that extra fuel, and they do not pollute your air. So they're very good to use.
Now, I mean, the cons, I think definitely, there's a little bit of an odor when you're
starting them
light
up,
the kerosene heater.
and when you put them out.
Now, there is a safety mechanism that is included in newer kerosene heaters. So if you would accidentally knock it over, it instantly goes out. Same thing with the propane, we should say. The propane heater that we just recommended to you, it has safety precautions already built into it. So if it tips over, you're not going to light your house on fire or something like that. It's going to immediately go out. I think another disadvantage certainly of kerosene. Kerosene is upwards of about $4 a gallon right now.
It is $4 a gallon in Peoria right now.
It is pricey, and you have to like go to the gas station and fill the appropriate container and then bring it back home. You got to store your fuel somewhere. We do store it in our attached garage. So there's some cons involved. The propane heater, it's all self contained, right? And so that fuel is probably easier, I think, to store and easier to attach to the unit.
If you have an apartment, it would be easier to use the propane heater than it would be to use the kerosene heater, because you could store that propane in a closet and it would be just fine. The kerosene, you would not at all want to store that inside. I wouldn't even put it in my basement. We do have it in our garage. And you can store that in low temperatures that isn't going to freeze. It's just like gasoline. It's not going to freeze up. So I usually keep about 22.5 gallons of kerosene on hand, and that would get us through quite a long cold snap, because it takes a long time to burn through that much fuel. That will actually last us for about 2 months. And that's if we're running it every night here. We do run it in the evening down in our basement to supply some heat. And there is some maintenance on a kerosene heater. You have to change the wick out, maybe every 5 or 6 years. It's not that often. You have to take a brush and kind of brush down the creosote that gets on the wick so that the wick burns efficiently. But once again, the same thing as the propane heater. You want to get out your owner's manual, and I've kept all of my owner's manuals. This is the one that we use in our basement. It's actually a 1982 model kerosene. They don't make kerosene heaters anymore.
The original sales receipt is still
on
it.
It does, yeah. Oh my gosh.
He's very organized, I have to say.
Yeah, that cost $159 new in 1982. But that is a real good heater. And then this is the one for our upstairs heater. But you want to. The reason why I keep the owner's manuals is it tells you how to change the wick. And it gives you some good guidelines on how to use the heater, how to light it, how to set the wick so it's burning the most efficiently. You want to know all those things about the product, whatever you choose to put into your home, so that you run it safely and effectively.
So those two methods of heating your home, the kerosene heater and also the propane heater, those are readily available and probably two of the most popular methods of supplying supplemental heat. And we're going to move on to a couple of final methods for providing some heat. But we did want to tell you that our last tip for you before we move on is don't wait until you need it to test it.
Right. No, and really now is a good time, at least at the recording of this video. This is late October. This is a good time to be preparing for the possibility of needing something during a winter storm outage.
Now, the last two methods of heating that we'll talk about actually are under the same general heading of some small portable heaters. We have two different kinds of small portable heaters. We have them both and we use them both. I'm going to show them to you. There will be links to both of them in the recommended product section for this video. Now, this comes, of course, with the caveat that in order to use something electric when there's no power, you have to be able to generate power. So that's coming up next, guys. Don't worry. Next, we're going to tell you how to generate the power that you need for your portable small electric heaters. Okay, heater number one is a tower heater. This is from Towtronics. They sent us this unit so that we could take a look at it. And there'll be a link for this once again in the description of the video. We really, really like this heater and recommend it. What do we like about it?
Well, we use it some in the evenings to kind of take the chill off the room. It runs at two different settings. It'll run at 1500 watts or 900 watts. And then it also has an oscillating feature, so it'll kind of spread the heat throughout the room. It's got a nice blower on it, so it distributes the heat very nice. And you can also set the thermostat to the temperature that you want the room at. It does have a safety feature. If you knock it over, it'll go out.
And it has a remote, guys, so you don't have to get up out of your chair to go set it, or turn it on or off. You can do that with the remote, which we really, really like. All right, heater number two that we use and recommend. This is what we call a parabolic dish heater. They have been around for far longer than you would imagine that they have been.
In fact, we used to own one that I think was built at around 1918. So this was actually the first type of electric heater. And all it does, there's no blower, there's no fan. It just radiates the heat out in kind of a parabolic dish fashion. It warms a small area. It's really not good for heating up a room. It's just good to put in front of you and kind of heat you up. This one does have an oscillating feature, and it has 2 different speeds. And you can also set a timer. So this will run for maybe 60 minutes and then shut off. And the Taltronics does that too, by the way. You can set a countdown timer on that too, so it'll run at various settings and then shut off. So these are really good heaters, but you need a generator in order to use these.
So you got your heat all taken care of, but with a couple of those heaters, you're going to have to provide electricity in order to make them work. And we have 2 different methods that we use in order to provide electricity.
The best way to provide electricity to run one of these heaters would be with a gas-powered generator. You can get different sized generators, and you need to determine what size would be best for your needs based on how you want to use it. I purchased a 3,500 watt generator from Menards. It's a Black & Decker. You can buy these online. Amazon has these.
Okay. And we have a link. There's a link to the one that was just like ours, and it's in the description of the video. We've had it several years and really, really like it. We have used it multiple times. Now, one of our caveats for choosing this size of generator, though, was we knew this generator will pretty much run everything in our house except our furnace or our central air. It will not run either one of those. It's not a heavy enough generator. But for us, we knew we had other backup power sources for keeping warm, so that was not an issue for us, and that's why we chose this size.
Well, my main concern was something to run the sump pump. So if you have a sump pump that goes out, then you've got major problems. So a 3,500 watt generator will give you enough power to run maybe a couple refrigerators, a freezer. That's what we use it for. It'll even run our gas dryer, because the dryer runs on natural gas, but the motor runs on 110. So we can plug the gas dryer and even the washer in. You can run these appliances one at a time with it. You got to be kind of careful not to overload it. So if I'm running the dryer or the washer, then I'll unplug another, maybe the sump pump if it's not
for a short time.
For a very short time.
Yeah, our big concern was the sump pump issue.
Right.
Losing power and having the sump pump not functioning. Really bad idea during certain seasons of the year.
Yeah, and I'm not going to cover all this in this video, but you can do a lot of research on how to hook one of these up to your existing fuse box. And there's some special things that have to be done by a trained and qualified electrician. This is something I wouldn't do on my own. So we don't have ours hooked up that way. We use heavy extension cords, and we set the generator in the back patio, and then I run extension cords through the windows into the house, and we hook those up to various appliances that we need. If you're not using a lot of power, for instance, if you're just running lights in your TV, you can run those off of one branch and another branch for your refrigerator and so on. So it takes a little research to know exactly what kind of a generator that you want for whatever your use is, but it's worth it. We have backup power this way, and it is really nice.
I will say that although this generator is not heavy duty enough to run our furnace, this generator, when we researched it, has been used in hurricane zones like in Florida, and people raved about how this generator helped them get through some major hurricanes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And once again, if you use just say one or two items at a time, as long as you don't exceed the wattage on it, you can use it for a lot. I actually had it hooked up to our garage door opener. I used it on our deep freezer in the garage. I've had it hooked up to our microwave. We've plugged the microwave in. We've even run a pot of coffee in the coffee maker
and the
several
internet,
times.
Guys.
Yes.
The router, first thing. Now, okay, so no judging. The reason we hook up the router first is because our home phone is through our internet company and is run through the router. So that is the reason that we hook up the router before we do anything else. So there you go.
Well, one of the most important things that you'll want during a power outage is that you'll want to stay in communication with family, friends. You'll want to know what's going on. So you might want to have a good news source. So certainly having your computer working is a very important thing. And it won't work very good without your router. If your router's not working, you're not going to be able to get on the internet and find out anything. So
now, before we move along and talk about another way of creating electricity during a power outage, and Larry's going to show you guys, there are 3 items that you need, and he has used this specific way of supplying power to our home countless times in the past 34 years. There's a couple of just safety considerations when it comes to the gas generators.
Well, one of the things you want to make sure on the gas generator, you want to make sure that the wind isn't blowing the fumes toward your house. So wherever you have it set up outside, you want to make sure that the wind is blowing away from your house so you don't get a carbon monoxide buildup through your vents in your house or even through your windows. It can come in that way. So you definitely want to make sure. And I would also recommend you have carbon monoxide and smoke detectors throughout your house. That's a very important thing to have when you're running supplemental heating and power.
And speaking of carbon monoxide and smoke detectors, we actually spoke in depth about that topic just 2 weeks ago when we did a video on 10 things that you need to do to make sure that your home is prepped and ready for winter. And we're going to make sure that there's a link to that video in the description of this video, and we'll link it up above too, so you can watch that when you're done with this video. All right, you have one more safety concern, and then we're moving on, and Larry's going to show you guys 3 things you need to provide power to your home.
Well, the other thing that you want to consider is you want to know what the wattage rating is on all of the appliances that they're using. Mm-hmm. Anything with a motor in it, you have to double the wattage load for that item, because when it starts up, it actually runs about twice the amount of power on startup. So let's say you have a fan and it's rated at 150 watts. Consider that a 300 watt appliance. So if you're going to run a real heavy motor, like a 1/2 horse motor or 1/3 horse, that's what our sump pump is. It's a 1/3 horse motor. You have to know what the wattage is, and you have to be able to give it headroom. My electric generator will do a surge power of 5,500 watts. Okay. So it's rated at 3,500, but you can surge it short. That's a short power burst up to 5,500. Every generator has a rating, and you need to pay attention to that rating.
All right, guys, you've been waiting. Larry's going to show you. He's going to demonstrate how to put 3 items together. He's going to create a power supply for light electrical usage.
Okay, so here are the 3 items that you're going to need should you run out of power. This will power some small appliances, some lights, your phone. It'll charge your computer. You could even hook your modem up to it. You can run a small fan off of this. It's amazing. And we'll run our television set. Actually, I can run our 47-inch TV using this battery and this inverter. So this is a 35 amp per hour battery. It's an AGM battery. AGM stands for absorbed glass mat. And all that means it's a battery that's designed to be charged and to be discharged. And it charges up very quickly after you've used it. So these batteries are readily available at your local battery stores, or you can order these on Amazon, and we'll have a link in our description for this item. The other thing you're going to need is something to charge the battery with. So this is a battery charger that's specially made to charge AGM batteries, because you have to have a special charging voltage to charge these. They don't run on as high a voltage as your car battery. So even though this will charge your car battery, it's also designed to charge your AGM. It'll automatically switch to know exactly what kind of battery to charge, or you can manually set it. you can look up your information on your owner's manual for this. And we're also going to have a link for this item. This is the last component you need in order to have a small power supply. And this is called an inverter. It converts 12 volts from the battery to 110 volts to run your 110 volt appliances. This is a pure sine wave inverter, which means that it supplies the same kind of power that your utility company provides. There's another kind of inverter. It's called a modulated inverter, and that will provide, it's like a square wave. It does provide AC, but it's not real clean AC, and you don't really want to use those for sensitive electronics. This one is safe to use with computers, anything with a motor or a fan. This is really the best bet. But if you just want an inverter for lighting, the modulated sine wave is fine for that. So this system will get you by for several hours. We use it to supply power to our modem. That's the first thing we hook up, and we can charge the computers and so on off of this. When you're assembling it, here's what you do. The inverter comes with these clips, and the clamps are just you match the red to the positive terminal and the black to the negative terminal. So when you turn the inverter on, it will supply power to your device. And as you can see, there's the light working off of that inverter. And it does a really good job of that. The charger hooks up exactly the same way. You hook the negative to the black and the positive to the red terminal on your battery. You plug that in, that'll charge it up. When it's through charging, it will automatically shut off. And we'll have links to all of these in our description. Okay, just to review a little bit, this is the charger. This puts voltage into the battery, charges it up. This is your power supply. This supplies the 12 volts to your inverter. This converts 12 volts to 110 to supply power to any of your 110 volt appliances, as long as they're within the 300 watt rating of this inverter. Now, the inverter will also do a surge to about 500 watts. I believe it's 500 watts for this model. The owner's manual will tell you what the surge is. So this is a 150 watt rated fan. And the way that I found out that it was 150 watts is that I plugged it in to this device called a kilowatt meter that will tell you exactly what your appliance is running. So on high speed, it was starting up at about 156 watts, and then it went down to about 129. On low speed, it was running at 70 watts. So if you have a smaller inverter, you could run this fan on the lower settings. But I'm going to turn it on high speed and let you see how it'll run. It's a motor, so it runs really good off of the pure sine wave inverter. Now, if you were to run that fan off of a modulated wave inverter, it would still run, but it wouldn't run up to full speed. So if you want it to run really good up to full speed, this is the kind of inverter that you're going to want to get for that. Now, this system will not run a microwave oven. It won't run a coffee pot. It won't run any heating devices, because heating devices are usually about 850 watts or more. You can get larger inverters, but the problem then is that it will draw too much power for this size of a battery, and you wouldn't be able to run it very long. It would probably deplete the battery in a matter of about a half an hour, so you don't really want to run that much power off of a small battery. You'd have to get a bank of these in order to do that. So the other way that you can charge this, if you have solar panels and you want to hook those up to your battery, there's a way to do that. I'm not going to go into that on this video, but that is what we originally bought this system for, was to run it off of solar panels.
Now, if we were to sum up everything that we just showed you and just told you, it would be for you to figure out how many square feet are you trying to keep warm? What appliances do you need to run when the power is out? And you need to match your system that you're using to your usage and to your needs. Those need to be matched up. And if they are, you can keep warm and comfy for a mighty long time. And speaking of warm and comfy, we want to remind you, this is part 1 of a 2-part program. Now, next week, we're going to delve deeply into how to keep warm, how to provide lights, and we're going to talk about some miscellaneous things like how to try to keep your pipes from freezing when there is an electric outage and it's the middle of winter. Now, getting ready for winter, that's another topic that we just covered recently. 2 weeks ago, we did a really great video, 10 steps to getting your home ready for winter. And that's the next video that you should watch, and check it out. It's right over there.